looked around 2015 or so, we were coming off of doing a few good years of sales in the offshore market where we had oil and gas products that were explosion proof. So they would go on an oil rig, they might have an explosive gas environment, and they needed to store paint, food, or medical supplies on those FPSOs or the oil rigs themselves. And with that market, there is an up and down in the oil price market, as everybody knows and sees at the pump. Around 2015, we saw, a pretty severe downward trend occurring. And we said, well, our whole goal is to build up multiple niches across multiple markets. So we don't have a specific pressure across all our markets at one time, and we can keep moving the company forward, as I mentioned. At that time, we saw that there was a trend occurring within the pharmaceutical industry where folks were looking to say, how can we move out of our typical air transport paradigm? So how can we get out of doing everything that we ship by air, which is pretty expensive, of course, but it's also pretty bad for the environment. So, to move 1 kilo of product 1 kilometer, you have on the order of 30 degrees more CO2 emissions when you transport that kilo of product by air. So there was some pretty serious, considerations around that time, especially within the EU and then and other locations as well. To how do we make that transition maybe to go to ocean freight? And we started to see the questions. We started to see, the presentations at conferences and things like that that were indicating that this was really where the market was heading. And so we set out to basically decide, how could we support that market? And we had a lot of lessons from the dangerous goods space that we worked in, where we built equipment that was dual redundant with backup power, remote monitoring, all sorts of things to make sure that certain products that might otherwise, have a severe incident or reaction, I should say, to not being properly cooled would always be properly cooled, would have backup systems, and would certainly have notification processes in place for when things went wrong. And we said, well, that's a perfect set of standard operating procedures. And we have the relationships with the steamship lines, which, believe it or not, they're still called steamship lines. None of them are using.
I haven't updated the terminology.
But at the same time, we said this is really, somewhere where we can excel and we can try to provide that same set of redundancy and reliability, but for different reasons, right? To make sure the patients are getting what they need first and foremost, but also to allow these companies to basically reduce their costs, improve their CO2 emissions, and kind of improve global CO2 emissions, or reduce global CO2 emissions. So